Well, Nigeria's education system, well, if you have a check into some of the schools in Nigeria, get the sense of what exactly is wrong with the country's education system. It's lacking key resources and lagging in development. With old, dilapidated structures, a dissatisfied workforce, low government support, and lack of innovation, the Nigerian education system has so many deficits to cover. As the world gradually and strongly moves into the digital age and education is taking new shapes and innovation is offering new directions, fixing the deficits in the Nigerian system has become more important than ever. Fixing these deficits is our focus today on The Square. Welcome, I'm Sulaiman. Well, in Nigeria today, there are pupils who have no classrooms, taking lessons under a tree with torn sandals and tattered shirts, hardly fed or protected. So when you learn to read, freedom becomes a possibility. Education for many years has become the single most powerful weapon against poverty. Now, education could also be the solution to wars. Increasing secondary education to 80% could reduce civil wars by 75%. Nigeria's current security struggles and its high poverty rate are clear indicators of a country struggling to educate its own. Now, while there are so many children and people of school age that are not in the classroom, those in the classroom barely fare better. Quite a lot happening. The plight of the teachers are hardly addressed by authorities. University lecturers work without pay. Classrooms are overpopulated, and education is now a survival of the richest. Well, joining me to look at the issues today is Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, who is the National President, ASUU, that's the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Good to see you, Professor. And of course, Comrade Adesina Samson Adedoyin, who is the former National Union of Teachers Chairman in Lagos. Gentlemen, good to have you both on the program. Now, let's start with you quickly here, Professor Emmanuel. When we talk of deficits in education, Nigeria, I remember the years universities in the country were the cynosure of all eyes in Africa. So how did we get here? Talking about the regression.
Thank you very much. You see, we got here because after some time, the leadership of this country completely abandoned the educational system, completely abandoned everything, how they were doing, how to make money for themselves, how to buy houses all over the world, how to buy property all over the world, how to suppress the poor people. That is how we got here. If you recall, in the 70s, 60s, 70s, the era of Obafemi Awolowo, in the Southwest then, that government giving more than 30% of its budget to education. And the effect was very clear. Free education, University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, University of Ife, University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University. They built secondary schools, primary schools, encourage teachers, pay people regularly, and people were happy. And then education moved. As at that time, University of Ibadan could rank with any university in the world. Ife could rank with anyone in the world. But today, those who took over after the military took over and not those who are come after that are just self-centered. And today, you can see where we are. As at today, when you go to UI, you will hardly see anybody outside Nigeria as a student in UI. But in the 70s and early 80s, more than 10% of the students, 20%, were people from outside this country. More than 10% to 20% were lecturers outside this country. But today, those things are gone. We are not preaching. People are just building established university without any attempt, no intention to inform them. And that's why primary school is even worse. Because if you recall that in the past 20 years, no state government have built up to 10%, have increased the primary and secondary school by 10% in terms of building and funding. Meanwhile, the population of Nigeria population of children have increased more than by 100%. That is where we are now. You now see kangaroo private people taking over the system just to produce graduates. That is where we are. That is the solid state of Nigerian university system, which we must reverse if we must compete with the world. We must stop this banditry. Let me tell you, one of the past leaders in one of the African countries said that anytime you abandon educating your children, you are building room for insecurity. And that's where we are today.
That's a big one, but again, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth of every Nigerian and African. And I'm excited that the representative of ASUU is here with us to look at that. But let me quickly bring in Comrade Adedoyin. And Comrade, we started looking at how we can reverse the trend in Nigeria's education system here on the square. And just recently, we had some teachers who also spoke about how badly things have gotten. Before you left the system, tell us what it was like looking at especially our secondary school system and even the primary school system in Nigeria.
Nigeria, good people, bad leaders. The problem we're having, as enumerated by my prof, starts from the issue of a budgetary allocation. Because none of our states are, even the federal government, up to the level of the UNESCO standard of between 16 and 26%. You see, majority of them are operating single digits budgetary allocation. They are not prioritizing their needs. And they are forgetting that there's no country that can develop beyond level 5 education. When they look at the education system, when they look at the teachers, right from primary to the university, they will say that we are many. And they are forgetting that we are those people that are training the professionals that can improve the economy. The National Economic Summit Group in 2014 said that if the economy of the country is going to be well developed, that there must be huge investments on teachers, right from primary school up to university level. The government of the day is not taking education as it's supposed to be. The majority of them pay lip service to education. A situation whereby some children, they will be under the tree. Some of them, when you look at the building, the environment, the academic environment, where they are studying, the primary and secondary school, not talk about Ivory Tower. You just find out that the Nigerian government has not placed priority, the right on the issue of education.
Let me bring in
Not only that.
Allow me to come in here quickly. I'll come back to you. Sorry, apologies for butting in there, Comrade Adedoyin. Let's bring in the National President of ASUU again. You know, there are things worthy of mention here, and it has to do with looking at those in our citadel of learning, your colleagues, irrespective of whether they're in primary, secondary, and tertiary institution. Professor, help us here. You know, the recruitment process. Some have said that the recruitment process is also fraught, and perhaps that is one area we should also try as much as possible to highlight today on the show.
Thank you very much. You see, are you following?
Go ahead, I can hear you.
Until recently, hello?
I can hear you.
Until recently, if you want to recruit a lecturer in Nigerian university system, you must put an advertisement, people apply, you conduct interview, and the best are selected. That was happened between the mid 1990, in the mid of 1990s. You must pass through the system. But somewhere along the line, also use the same structure, political structure, and my brother and my friend or my religion, whatever, that system was broken down. That people were brought in who have no business in the universities. And that's why we are where we are today. Let me explain to you. One of our very renowned professors, Professor Ike Naonyido, came with this idea about the type of people you have as lecturer in Nigeria. Say you blow them into three. Those who into four. Those who came in on their own, first class, second class upper, who have passed through the system, and they are doing very well. Second group are those who have not so good, although they have first class, second class, but they want to be in the industry. Having been in this for some time, they didn't find joy, they didn't find satisfaction. They came to the university and they are doing well. Then you have the third class, the third group. Those who ordinarily have no business in university, but passing through their godfather and their godmother, they find their way to the system and they are doing destroying the system. Then you have finally the fourth one. Those who, although they are good, but they didn't have problem, they didn't have job, no job anywhere, so they came in to make money. So these are the three class, and this one came in the 90s, late 90s. So when you check the university today, there are so many people who are lecturers who ordinarily have no business lecturing anywhere in the world. They don't meet the requirement, they didn't come in on their own, they came through the bar, through the godfather, through politician and what have you. That is the problem we're having. So we noticed it in the system. And this government, this Nigerian system will do something about this system. We should go back to the old method of lecturers being recruited all over the world. You can come from any part of the world. But in doing so, you must increase the incentive for lecturing so that somebody can come from Ghana, can come from Britain, can come from anywhere, as it was then, to teach in Nigerian universities. Today, an average professor earns less than $1,000. An average professor in Nigeria earns less than $1,000 a month. How will that attract anybody from outside the world? The last time Nigerian university reviewed their salary structure was in 2009, when the exchange rate was about one naira to about $50 or $60. But today, what do you have? And you are still on salary. People will not come from outside. You will not get the best quality in the system. So we must go back to the old way. We must invest in education and ensure that our system works.
Comrade Adedoyin, you know, this is very grave. You know, the picture isn't a beautiful picture painted by Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, looking at the categories of persons who are out there teaching in our university. Is it any different, you know, looking at the primary and secondary schools in Nigeria?
It is the same. Because the best hands are not being given opportunity as a result of nepotism. You see, even the recruitment of, apart from the recruitment of teachers, the teachers that are trained, the majority of them are not having interest in teaching. Some will just apply for biochemistry, but because they couldn't meet up with the cutoff point of biochemistry, go and study chemistry or biology education. See, but those who have interest, who have passion, that's the reason why we are advocating that there is need for the admission also officers to the universities and to increase the cutoff point of education to be at par with those in law, in medicine, so that the best brain can come into the education department. When you look at University of East Legon in Ghana, for instance, based on our research, we found out that if you don't have at least 6-8, you cannot be admitted into the Faculty of Education. Well, even if you cannot get up to that level, why don't we look at those people who are interested, who have passion for the job, not that food for the boys and girls. Some people don't have business. They don't, as professors have said, they don't have business in teaching industry. They don't have interest. They don't have passion. They have no business there. But as a result of this thing, no job. Let everybody come here, and that's the reason why the new for the primary and secondary school now that in some states, if you don't have Teacher Regional Council of Nigeria certificate and license, you will not be employed. It's the right step in the right direction because of the pedagogical aspect of it. You may be very good. You may study. You may have a BSc in mathematics, but if you don't have, if you don't know the rudiment, the pedagogical, 2 + 2 is equal to 4. How do you make that 2 + 2 to become 4 in the presence of those children? It is very important. So, nepotism is still part of the problem that we have. Selfishness, egocentrism, and some other things are those people that are killing the education in this country.
Let's bring the ASUU president again. And two key things you said earlier. You said the best are not selected. And of course, people who come in, some of them lack the interest and the passion, which are very key points you raised. Let's talk about the training and, of course, the content that comes out of our university, especially now that the world is fighting COVID-19. The world is in a pandemic, and many people had thought that the university will be a place where a lot of research and learning will be helping communities, countries. How is the funding like in terms of research, learning, and even planning for countries and institutions in Nigeria at the moment?
Thank you very much. This is what we'll be saying over the time. You can only do a good research, especially in science-based area, if you have the appropriate laboratory facilities. You have to be. If you don't have it, in those countries you are talking about, the government of the country can challenge a university, say, please develop COVID-19 cure for us, and we are releasing $1 billion to you to do it, and we'll give you 2 years. And those universities will do it. I give you a typical example. The federal government came up with this so-called IPs that have been creating problems in most of the units and universities. And as you said, give us 3 months, we'll produce alternative, a better alternative. It took all them like 3 months and we'll produce it. And they are still dancing around with it in NITA. So what I'm saying is that this country can work if Nigerian leaders believe in the country. But they don't. They believe in foreigners. They go abroad and bring people who have no idea of what to do what our people should do for us. Meanwhile, our people go out to those countries and perform extremely well. But we don't believe in the system. We don't fund the system. The only way to go and for the university to take charge and the government to take charge of what is going in this country is to invest in the universities and then challenge the university to produce ideas and means of changing this country using the triple helix method. The triple helix emphasizes that there should be a connection between the government, the higher institution, and the people, the industries, and the people. And that is moving the world today, but we have refused to hook into that. So that is our problem. So our suggestion is this. Government should go back to what happened in the 60s and early 70s. Invest in education because there is nothing else that will move a country except education. One of the prime minister of Britain said his first priority is education, second is education, and third is education. When you go to Germany, the best paid people there are teachers and lecturers, even more than the president, more than the German chancellor. So until we go back to that era, we will not move anywhere.
Let me butt in here, Professor Osodeke. You said something now. You said the leaders in Nigeria don't believe in the system. But these same leaders, if you look at the majority of these who are running the affairs of the country, they were all products of Nigerian universities. So how come they don't believe in a system that produced them in the first place?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. If you look at my idea, that those we are talking about, those who were Nigerian universities in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s, if they believe in the system, why are they sending their children abroad? Why don't put them in Nigerian universities if they believe in the system? They are succeeding in killing this system, and then they're not sending children abroad. You normally see them arguing with their children during convocation outside this country with our money. So that is it. They need to change their orientation and believe that we have the best personnel in the system, the primary, secondary education. 2, they should be mobilized. 2, they should be encouraged. 3, the system should be reviewed to ensure that our laboratories become one of the best in the world. To belong that teaching hospitals are the best and they can go there for treatment, not running abroad. If you have found your system, you will not run abroad. If you believe in the system, you will not run abroad. And that's why we believe every Nigerian should be mobilized to ensure that any political office holder in the country, for them to hold the office, they must bring their children back to Nigerian primary school,
Well, I think we seem to have a glitch in the audio connection to Professor Emmanuel Osodeke. As soon as that clears up, we should be back to him. And if you can hear me, Comrade Adedoyin, Professor has just suggested something that he thinks can work for Nigeria. And now we're starting to look at the problems vis-a-vis solutions. He thinks that political leaders in the country should also, as a matter of policy, ensure that their children are in Nigerian schools. Do you think that would also help in putting more attention, more like funding into education in Nigeria?
Absolutely correct and perfect. Because I remember in the 80s, during the time of Alhaji Jakonde, he has all his children in Ilukweju Secondary School. And he even told all those who are serving in the cabinet that if you want to serve in my cabinet, all your children must be in public school. That's the reason why they paid more attention to secondary education and secondary and primary education during the time of Alhaji Jakonde. Even the free education they are saying they are conducting now, is this the type of free education Alhaji Jakonde and others conducted, or this free education I will not give to some of them? It's not, because they have even done it under the guise of education is on concurrent legislative fees. They bastardized the public education, and some of them went to create or to establish a primary school, and a secondary school and university, whereby they pump a lot of money into to the detriment of the downtrodden masses. Prof is correct. It has been part of our own advocacy right from the outset that those in the political class, their children, their what, their grandchildren, let them bring them to the public school, so that they should continue the way they are doing. Whether you will see whether they are going to benefit. You will see better with me if they bring all their children. If it's an advocacy and it's mandatory for those who are serving, that all your wards, those who are under your custody, they should be under the public education. We will find out that there's going to be mass improvements in the education system in
Nigeria. Let's quickly bring in the ASUU chairman again. Beg your pardon, the ASUU president again. And again, apologies, there was a glitch while you were running off with that point on ensuring that political leaders, as a matter of policy, ensure that their children are in Nigerian schools. But again, put this side by side with some of the key things we're also trying to look at. We're trying to look at some schools today which used to be great. They had some of the best structures in the past and have produced some of Nigeria's most eminent individuals. You also highlighted some of them in your opening. You made mention of University of Ibadan, University of Ife. So what's the place of maintenance in reducing these deficits as established by you and Comrade Adedoyin?
Thank you very much. You see, as of today, University of Ibadan gets less than 200 million as capital votes in a year. Less than 200 million. What can 200 million maintain in a year in University of Ibadan? Buy generator, renovate the building, buy lab equipment, and what have you. That is the problem. And you recall, in 2012, we challenged the federal government and they agreed to set up a committee to go around all the universities and look at the deficit, and then we can rectify the results in the Netherlands. It was well documented. In one of the first generation universities, they were using stove as a substitute for Bunsen burner. In one of the universities we went to, there were 16 students in one small room, 12 by 12, and each of them have a stove. And based on that, the committee recommended, the government recommended that the federal government should invest 1.3 trillion naira in federal university over 5 years to revert those universities to a standard where they can compete with anyone in the world. The Jonathan administration released a 200 billion then in 2013, and between then and now, they have not been able to release additional 100 billion.
So, what is ASUU? I hope you can hear me, because there seems to be another glitch. So, what is your union doing to ensuring that the government meets up with the balance? Because it doesn't look like that amount can also sustain what you want in present-day Nigeria, if you look at 2013 till this moment. So is there likely to be a review in the figures of what you thought, your body thought would have helped, move the education, in tertiary education, up from where it is at the moment?
Thank you very much. If that money were released in 2013, as we agree, up to 2017, I can assure you by now, those universities will generate money from companies, from investment, from research to maintain the system. But they didn't release it. And I agree with you. Now, those money cannot even do what we agreed on. They can't. But instead of increasing the budget allocation, they are reducing it. If you recall, the president of this country, about 2 months ago, or a month ago, in the US, in one of the foreign countries, said he was going to double the budget for education this year, going to reduce by 50%. And in 2 years, it will be doubled. But you have seen the budget this year is even less than what we expected. So that is the problem we have. And Nigeria needs to appeal to the leaders that, please, this money they used to go and do things abroad, they should invest it in our system, and that system will revamp our economy, revamp the country, create jobs, and stop this banditry we are seeing. The sign of the banditry and what you are seeing today is a product of not training our children.
Well, I think we lost the audio connection again there. Let's bring in Comrade Adedoyin. Comrade Adedoyin, before we go on the break, let's quickly talk about some of the key things we've also highlighted with the ASUU president. There's the UBEC for basic education. We'll take the TET fund with Professor when we come back. But looking at the monies earmarked to funding, primary and secondary education, specifically, you were in Lagos, and we've seen to a large extent the effort being put by that state government. Is that replicated in other parts of the country, especially by having a conversation with your colleagues? What's the conversation like? What do you see in terms of funding for secondary and primary education?
Well, we cannot compare Lagos with some other states of the federation, because we there's need for us to give Lagos a bit part at the back in terms of infrastructural development, the welfare of teachers, and some other equipment and facilities for education, and even technological development, so on and so forth, which we cannot even, because when we meet at our own level there, we do compare notes. So by the time we are comparing notes, what I was presenting, what Lagos has done to improve education in Lagos State. Some other states will be looking at me, whether maybe what we are saying, can it be true? Can it be verified? We tell them that it's something that you can see on your own. If the way they have started in Lagos, if other states of the federation can emulate, I know there's going to be market, because the Lagos State now has left a single digit in their own budget. I think for 2021, I think for education, it's about 12 or 13% or thereby. Unlike even the federal government that is under single digits of 7, 8, 9%. So the other states, when we compare it, when we compare those, they have not performed. What they normally say that they lack there is no fund, revenue is not okay, it's not this, it's not that, and they have forgotten. And I've said it times that number that they need to prioritize their needs, because the situation where the assembly members, even the state assembly members, the Senate, they're supposed to, those houses, as highlighted, they're supposed to be on part-time. Because the money they are taking is much more than what's supposed to be injected into the education system. When you look at our political office holders, and look at the professor, as he has said, even that's not minimum wage as we have said. Majority of the state of the federation, they have not implemented it. Some they pay their workers have salaries. Some quarter. Some they will say that they pay in percentages according to, because they depend solely on the revenue collected from this from a federal allocation. So many things are wrong in the country that need to be put in place. More money for research. We have some of our secondary school teachers now that are very good in terms of that research, but they were not encouraged. I remember one of our teachers used a water hyacinth to produce gas that generates electricity. He used the leaves and the stem to produce a paper. So if all those ones are well funded, you see, that's water hyacinth that is wasting on water. It's just a matter of packing it after they have found it necessary something and develop it into the production of that paper and the gas used for cooking. So the government of Nigeria, both the state and the federal level, they are not doing well. For instance, in primary school is the worst, because they have forgotten that the bedrock of education is primary school. It is the foundation that you lay, that you are going to build upon. But they are not looking at it from that perspective. They just said that the local government should fund the primary education, and whereas it wasn't so in the constitution. So it is not explicit enough. But they just said Lagos local government must participate in primary education. They are not saying that local government should fund primary education, because the money that is coming to local government is too paltry. That cannot
just hold your thoughts. I hope you don't lose it. We'll come back to you, Comrade Adedoyin, after the break, so that we can talk more about the primary education as well as proper solutions to some of the problems identified in Nigeria's education system. That's when we return. Join us again. Well, it's our home run here on Village Square Africa News Center Television, and of course, we're looking at the education system, rather sector in Nigeria. Well, the Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria has given the government until the end of the month to settle its 30 billion naira revitalization fund demands. The Nigerian universities have some of the brightest minds in the world, but are also poorly equipped. Also, there is a threat of growing disinterest in education from the Nigerian youth. No, thanks to the skyrocketing rate of unemployment, there are many deficits to be fixed in structures and human resources, and how to achieve that should be the key to unlocking the great Nigerian potential. I still have Professor Emmanuel Osodeke and Comrade Adesina Samson Adedoyin with me on the square. Quickly, before that, good to know you're back, Professor Emmanuel. Quickly, there is the UBEC for basic education and TET fund for tertiary institutions. Let's quickly talk about the TET fund and see how we can break it down for easy understanding of Nigerians watching. What's the importance of TET fund in finding solutions to the education deficit in tertiary institutions?
Thank you very much. TET fund is a product of an ASUU struggle in the early 90s. And at the end of that negotiation with government, they demanded from us, how do we fund this? And we indicated that you can easily fund it by taxing the profit of all Nigerian companies, 2% of the profit, and put to education. That was the origin. It took another stride for the government to agree to implement it. Today, it seems to be working. Today, if you remove TET fund from all Nigerian universities, polytechnic and college education, there will not be anyone existing, because the states are no more funding. But the TET fund was supposed to be an intervention project in key areas: building of structures, buying of equipment, and training of colleagues. It's not a substitute for funding by the state and federal government. But what we have today, the states and federal government have not made it the only source of funding the capital project and training of staff, which is not correct. There's no way 2% of the profit of some companies, because it's also not well collected, is not also well applied. So that is the problem we're having. So TET fund is a good idea, but if the state and federal are also funding it accurately, today it would have transformed the system. But they are not, they have abandoned it to TET fund. So today you see the state and federal proliferating university, creating university all over the place. And the idea is that TET fund will fund it. That wasn't the idea. That's the problem we have. The same thing with the UBEC and what have you. There's supposed to be counterpart funding by state, but many of the states are not interested. And they look at this as one of the political money you can use for anything. That is the problem we're having with all of them, even TET fund.
I'll come back to you, Professor, so that we can talk about the revitalization fund, which your union is asking the federal government of Nigeria. Quickly, Comrade Adedoyin, I'd like us to go back to the early years, as highlighted by the ASUU president, talking about the 60s and the 70s, where he said those were the better years, seeing a lot of activities in the education sector. The colonial years specifically saw the establishment and training of credible teachers. What exactly did they do right that you think that today's Nigerian leaders can actually, pick and establish in the education sector?
Well, first and foremost, let me say that the problem that's associated to the current deficit, one,
well, I think, again, we have a glitch there. Let's quickly go back to ASUU president. Quickly here, I was going to bring this to you because there's been some back and forth between the government and your union of university lecturers. The deadline for the payment of the revitalization fund is October 31. That's this year. So what's the revitalization fund about, and how is the union working to see that that deadline doesn't see another, onslaught between, another conflict between the federal government of Nigeria and the body of union of lecturers?
Thank you very much. On this note, we were thinking that by now, that money would have been released to the universities. On that, that's why I talk about the need assessment fund. The product is this fund we are talking about, so the revitalization fund. They just released, they agreed they will release 30 billion in December 2020, immediately. But we are now also in October 2020, and that money has not been released. Or they showed evidence that money was in central bank. We invited all the VC and requested that you tell the system what they want to use with the money, which they have defended, and so many of them have been cleared to use the money. But as of today, we've not got any concrete evidence that that money has been released to the universities. But we said till the end of October, we still have 4 days. We do hope that within now and those 4 days, they will keep to their words and release those money to the university in the interest of Nigerian children, the parents, and the society at large.
How do you feel when you hear, now you're talking about parents, how do you feel sometimes when some parents or even students think that, well, ASUU is a problem to getting a better education? They think that the on and off bickering between your union and the government of the country sometimes sort of pull the system down instead of taking it up to a better pedestal.
When people are not educated, we have that problem you are talking about. But for ASUU, the Nigerian universities, polytechnic, and college education will be like the public primary and secondary school that we have today, that completely be taken over by the private sectors. How many Nigerian parents can pay school fees of 1 million as they pay in private university in Nigeria? Just check this country. How many parents can pay even 100,000 as school fees? People who earn less than 30,000 naira a month with family. That's what we have been fighting for. Our fight is for the interest of these children, these parents who do not understand what we are talking about. Any day ASUU lost this battle, I will repeat it, any day ASUU lost this battle, that will be the end of university education for the children of those who earn, the ordinary Nigerian who cannot afford to pay the fee paid in private schools. They will be taking, the university will be taken over just like the primary and secondary school have been taken over by private sector. And that is the reason of our fight. And they should understand that but for us, you will not, but for third form we fought for, there will not be infrastructure in the university today. And I'm really surprised when we have told them that any day the parents and the students take over this fight as they did in the 70s. You remember in the 70s? Students died. They struggle when they remove school feeding. They struggle when the school was not be funded. But the present set of leaders of Nigerian students are just busy going from government house to government house instead of fighting for their own people. Today, you have students who take lecture from the windows. A classroom that you take 30 students, you have 100 or 1,000. Is that what they have outside this country, even in Benin Republic and Ghana? So we think they should rise up to the occasion. Any day the parents and the students take over this struggle, ASUU will hand off. I have all my children pass through the public school. I can't afford to pay 1, 2, or 3 million naira as school fees. I know many, the ordinary Nigerian cannot, and that is our struggle. If not for us, they will not be where they are today.
What's the relationship between ASUU and the NUC, especially in getting, the system up and running?
The NUC funding agency, what they do is to ensure that the system meets the standard. The regulatory agency is the Federal Ministry of Education, working on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. So we expect them to meet the minimum requirement. You can check the budget allocation. You will be surprised that as we speak today, what do you call it? The government colleges are getting, and more than one university are getting as capital vote. Should that be what you have in a university? When you go around the world, including Ghana, go and see how much they give as budgetary allocation to education. Why do we have the highest and the lowest in the world? Is it that we don't have interest of education at heart? Those are the questions we should ask the leaders of Nigeria. But when you go to the Nigerian Senate, virtually every senator is holding a bill to establish a university when you are not funding the one you have. So government are creating 3 universities in a day without provision for those you have. That's the problem we have. And the parents and the children, the students, should know that they have crisis. And if ASUU let down this struggle, they will be the loser in the system.
I understand Comrade Adedoyin is back. Let's quickly talk about, welfare. as we wind down. Comrade Adedoyin, in today's world, it was only recently we had a body of teachers from across the continent here when it was World Teachers' Day. And almost everyone we spoke to did say, well, it's still a far cry from what is being expected in terms of teaching. In terms of remuneration. How can the government of Nigeria, Comrade Adedoyin, make it possible that the glory days of teaching as a profession can be brought back to bear?
Well, thank you very much, Sulaiman. The remuneration varies from one state to another. For instance, in Lagos, where I work, in terms of the welfare of teachers, they tried a lot in terms of creation of a motivation and those things. Because part of the welfare of teachers is the payment of a salary as I went due, promotion as I went due, even teachers merit award, whereby cars were given to members. We have not even gotten there because the money the teachers are collecting is not commensurate to the services we are rendering. So, but other states of the federation, as I've said, some have not even implemented that 18,000, not talk of that 10,000. Some paid on pro rata basis. Some look at the percentage. What money amount comes in this month? Okay, you are going to take a 30% of your salary without paying back the arrears of those salaries that they have. In terms of welfare, teachers are not worked out for, right from primary up to university level. And I've said it, they should not kill the goose that lay the golden egg. For all other professionals that they are laying much emphasis upon, they are giving them fat salary remuneration or reimbursement. They are trained by the teachers. So the welfare of the teachers is a source of a concern for us in this country, because teachers are not well catered for.
Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, quickly, let me bring you back here on the issue of remuneration. You said something about the glory days in Nigeria when we had a lot of, non-Nigerians teaching in Nigeria, because it was fantastic to do that. And we woke up someday and all the expatriate teachers had left, and even those remaining like yourself, as your union will always say, that's a word coined by a union, correct me if I'm wrong, that your take-home pay can't take you home. Tell us how this is working for you all, and what the body of teachers are doing to ensure that this trend is reversed.
Thank you very much. As we speak, so just like doctors, many Nigerian academics are leaving because what they have there is not commensurate with what they do and cannot take care of them. So they are leaving this country. The best brains are leaving, as happened in the 90s and what have you. So we have that problem. And we believe that in 2019, we had an agreement with government. 209, I'm sorry. That is about 12 years ago. And now we have agreed in 2017, we should negotiate that agreement to increase what the lecturer takes home. That agreement has been on now for 4 years. In May this year, we reached an agreement, an understanding with the government committee set up by the government, appointed by them, on what should be the minimum condition for the academics. And since then, May, and now, we've not got any response from the government, whether they approve what their team negotiated or not. It's part of the issue that our members are agitating, and we believe the government have to do something as quickly as possible to avoid another crisis in the Nigerian university system. If you set up a team and they negotiate with the opposition for 4 years and reach an agreement, and that thing has come back to you, and 4 months after, or 5 months after.
Let's look at one last issue before we call it a day here. Comrade Adesina, do you think that the government should tinker with the fees paid by students? Will that amount to better remuneration for teachers?
In those days, I remember in Lagos, because they believe that the problem of education cannot be solved by the government alone. And they are forgetting that a child right, education is a child right. But I remember those times when we are paying, the secondary school were paying just a token of a 10 naira as the education levy, and 5 naira by the primary school as education levy, which they use in maintaining the schools, do the desk and benches, not on this time around when you see children sitting on the floor to learn, not floor to learn. So all those ones. But there's no amount of money that those children can pay that can cater for the salary, unless you don't want the landlord masses, their children, you don't want them to learn. But what I just feel is that if the government puts its priority right, cut all those unnecessary and flamboyant expenses, all unnecessary money given to some people that are not in government, if everything is being diverted to education, we will find it very easy to pay the salary and motivate and create a very welfare environment.
Thank you. Let me quickly bring in Professor Emmanuel Osodeke to close this for us. And it has to do with remuneration. And we've seen some of your colleagues who also lecture in private universities. They get better pay. And some think it's because of the fees that these students pay. What do you have to say about that quickly before we close for today?
Thank you very much. It's not true that they are better paid. You know, because there are no unions in those universities, they cannot tell you what they are being paid. I know a private university where a professor is paid 150,000 a month. Is that private business?
Oh, we seem to have another glitch there, just as we're about to wind down. And I'm hoping that we can actually get the professor to quickly close in on that. But how bad it has been. Okay, I say you're back quickly. Again, apologies. We had a glitch. Can we just allow you close on that? You were saying that it's entirely not true what people get paid in private universities.
Private universities, yes, because they don't have, they can't tell you what they are being paid. Whatever they get in the month, they take. Two is that for the ordinary Nigerian, 70% of Nigerians live below poverty line. So if you try to introduce school fees in public universities, which means the children of those 70% of Nigeria cannot go to universities, which is not correct. And they have a constitutional guaranteed right for education. And can the government fund education? The answer is yes. If we leave all these things, they spend so much money on this wastage, they can fund education properly like other countries in the world. It's a right of the student. They should not be begging for it. Even as physics, so the parents take care of about 70% of the cost of a student being in school. They pay for accommodation, they buy their books, they pay for all charges in the system, they pay for their transportation, they feed themselves. So when you look at the total cost of a student in school, parents still take 70%. And we don't think that is right. Federal government should fund and state government should fund the universities appropriately in the interest of this system. And to stop this thing we're having today, this stealing, banditry, kidnapping, is a product of our refusal to fund education appropriately. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a fine place for us to leave it. And Professor Emmanuel Osodeke will stay with you, especially as we get to the deadline on the Revitalization Fund, which is October 31. We'll hope to reach out to you again to see how that is going with the federal government. And of course, many thanks as well to you, Comrade Adesina Adedoyin, for being such nice company. For our viewers, you can get to watch the program again on our YouTube channel here on News Center Television. Keep in mind, there's no nation that can be built outside its education, and a strong education system builds A strong, prosperous, and free populace without education at its best in Nigeria and deficits fixed for future prosperity, not much will happen in terms of development. Sulaiman, see you again.